come on back by the fire. I've got another story for you. Do you remember when we talked about how it came to be that humans lived upon the earth? We set the stage by talking about the universe. We talked about how the earth was formed, and we learned how life appeared. And when the earth was ready, human beings came to exist upon our planet. And we talked about the Phoenicians and how they gave us the clever gift of the alphabet that we still use today. And we can only imagine that when people began to speak to one another long before they needed to write anything down, we do not know how long ago it was that human beings first began to speak. We only know that they did. And we can imagine that whenever people began to speak, they probably used words that mean numbers. People that lived long ago had the same need to talk about numbers that we do today.
People have been counting and keeping track of numbers since the prehistoric times. The ancient Greeks, the Mayan, Hindu and Arabic, ancient Chinese, ancient Roman, and the ancient Egyptians. They all have a system for counting, and we're going to tell a story that helps us think about where that might have begun. Let's take a trip far back in time to a place so long ago that we have lost count when, back when people were living in caves, when there were no houses. One group of people lived in a cave overlooking a beautiful, beautiful valley. They could look out and see green grass, many trees, a watery stream, and the lovely valley beneath, frequently traveled by many different types of animals. And this story is about one person in particular, one special person that lived in that tribe, a girl whose name was Dawnchild. The girl was called the Dawnchild because she rose early every morning at the time of the dawn to see the animals and the warm light that illuminated the sky at that time. Dawnchild loved so much to go down into the valley close to the river. There she would see birds and fish. She would see amphibians and animals in the trees, and she would see large animals that had come to drink. She loved to follow the hunters and watch them when they went out to chase animals, great or small. Sometimes the hunters chased animals as small as the hare or the squirrel, and other times they were able to find large animals like deer or caribou. The wise women in the tribe frequently told her, "Dawnchild, hunting is not for you. Hunting is for the men of the tribe. You are not to go with them." But the Dawnchild wanted to go, and she loved to watch the hunters when they practiced by putting a stone into a sling and whirling it around their heads again and again until they released it forcefully at a tree. In this way, they perfected their technique so that when they were out hunting, they could throw the stone to easily catch a rabbit. Dawnchild also loved to watch them when they made a spear. The hunters made the head of the spear very carefully from flint, and they would take this spear and put it into a wooden spear thrower called an atlatl. She watched them practice throwing. The spear would go at tremendous speed and very accurately toward the target. Over time, Dawnchild learned how to do these things too. She watched and she learned how to whip the stones. She watched and she learned how to throw the spear. She became an expert at using these things. She learned how to knap flint and make sharp knives and spearheads. And eventually, She became a hunter, even though the people had warned her not to do this. She was respected because she could do these things. And when they went out on a great hunt, they needed to consider, how would they carry back the food? For one person can only carry so much. If one person went far away and found many caribou, it would be impossible to bring all the meat and hides back. And when they went out on a long hunt, there was always a question of who should go. Should everyone go? How many people were really needed? Answering these questions was always very difficult because in these days, no one knew numbers. There were no numbers and counting had not been invented. The only thing that could be counted was one thing, something by itself. One day, Dawnchild went quite a ways away from the tribe's area. She went about as far as she could run in 2 whole days. She ran and she ran until she came to a high ridge that overlooked a broad plateau. And in that plateau was a beautiful set of pools, maybe just right for animals to come and drink, she thought. So she stayed there through the night and until the next morning. Then she could watch at her favorite time, the dawn, to see if the animals would come and drink. And they did. There were many caribou, enough to feed her tribe for the winter. She knew that her tribe could eat well and live if they could only kill all of the caribou. But she also knew that she could not carry them back all by herself. She was frustrated because she feared that she wouldn't be able to tell the people how many hunters were needed to come back and help. As Dawnchild sat there thinking and looking over the plateau, she happened to be holding a stone in one hand, and in the other hand she held a stick. She was idly scratching the stick, and she was thinking, just sort of absent-mindedly scratching away at the stick, what to do, what to do. Scratching and chipping away at the stick kind of helped her think, and when she looked down the stick, suddenly an idea came to her. She made sort of a mark on the stick, and she stared at it with her forehead furrowed in concentration. For some reason it occurred to Dawnchild that her mark was like a caribou, just a lone caribou, not a herd. She made another mark on the stick. Dawnchild looked and she thought, this mark is also like one caribou. And she scratched another mark and thought, this is also like one caribou. Dawnchild kept marking one and one and one and one and one until she made one mark for every caribou that was there. One and one and one and one and one and one, a mark for every caribou she saw. Many caribous, many marks on the Dawnchild's stick. Dawnchild picked up her stick and began to run. She ran the long way all through the day and most of the night. She ran all the way back to her village, to her cave, to her tribe. They were hungry. But her people would not be hungry for long, for when she reached them, she also thought of something, that one mark is like one hunter. One and one and one and one were needed to go and find the caribou and bring them back. Dawnchild's idea worked. The hunters were very successful. They had exactly the right number of people to carry exactly the right amount of meat back to her tribe, and they ate very well that year because of the Dawnchild. Now, Dawnchild wasn't really counting because she could only count one, but she could count one many times, so that is what she did. And today we call the stick that she used a tally stick, and the scratches that she made we call tally marks. By making those tally marks, the Dawnchild started something wonderful, which was the beginning of counting, the first step leading to humans being able to count. People discover things when there is a need. Those early people had a need. The Dawnchild discovered it. This probably happened more than 25,000 years ago. I guess I should say that the wise woman never again told the Dawnchild that she should not hunt, because Dawnchild had proven that she could do just that. Dawnchild showed that she was not only a person who loved the dawn, but she was also a great hunter and an inventor.